welcome everybody.
Hmm.
Oh, we're a whole 1 minute over time. Do you think we can start? Or do we have to wait longer? We can start.
I want to share my experience of my worst ever Zoom meeting.
You just had.
I mean, to say had it is like, you know, so it was this thing, it was meant to be about climate change and young people. And so it didn't start, it was started half an hour late. Half an hour. And they didn't have any like, oh, I'm sorry, we're going late, being late, or they, you know, weren't engaging with people. It was like, just like sitting there in silence. So I started talking to this guy who from Guinea. So we got a good chat going, which so that was worthwhile. So then it started after half an hour late, and it was just gonna get, and then it got Zoom bombed by some really horrible pornography. So at that point, I just gave up. But that was it was the Children's Commissioners, you know, the Scottish Children's Commissioners Unit and the Institute for Wonderful Futures for Children at Strathclyde Uni. It was like, you know, it's like they had shovel loads of money to put in, and you guys or nothing are just so incredibly professional. You can run umpteen of these around the world, and they're all amazing, and just shows you. Anyway, I'm glad to get that off my chest. It was honestly, anyway, sorry. Positivity back in the room. Right.
All right, Joel.
So that's my check-in.
Just to let you know, this will be on YouTube.
Yeah, it needs to be recorded.
We're editing. We're allowing people to say they want bits edited out. So you can always apply. Hi, John. So we thought we would keep this short and simple, and that we would retrace our steps starting from the first circle in Scotland, and just invite popcorn rounds of anyone who has a memory, which may be very few of us at this stage of the game. If you remember something about that circle that you want to share, then please share it. We probably just take 2 or 3 per circle, unless there's lots of people jumping up and down wanting to share. But if we start, so we would start in Scotland, and we would go to Turtle Island, and we would go to Peru, and Colombia, then Aotearoa, I always say it wrong, then Australia, then West Papua, Indonesia, then Kenya, and East Africa, and then we end up with our memories of this bit of me going on like this, and then and then we're done. Does that sound like a plan? Okay. So we're starting in Scotland.
Should we take a breath? You know, just
yeah.
Some of us are kind of have been going for 24 hours and therefore are slightly hysterical. But we're also not hysterical, and we're also very grounded and present. So just a moment's breath, which is not my usual thing. I don't normally say this, but I suggest we take that, and then we go for 2 or 3, whatever struck us from that first circle. Yeah, great.
Well, shall I kick off? Break the silence? Totally out of character. What I really took away from it was the spontaneity of it. Not prepped, but really honest and authentic and diverse. And also very kind of reflective of history and the whole colonial experience. So I thought it was the most amazing kickoff for creating the space for whatever came afterwards. And for me, it did it really well. So that's mine.
Liz.
Thank you. I've come into part of the assemblies only, and I've just been amazed at how intimate these groups and these relations have been. It's possibly a reflection on the really trusting relationships that the organisers have with the communities, but it hasn't been like listening to someone on a podium speaking to a crowd and putting their case forward. It's been phenomenally intimate, and I think that has allowed us to really hear with the heart. I'm still blown away by the fact that I did a woo with one of our Kenyan groups and they all did it back, and we had such horrendous tragic stories of oppression from them. So I think this has been very moving, and had I known more about how it would unfurl, I would definitely have publicised and spread the word. I think there is enormous potential. Thank you so much to the organisers.
Thank you, Liz, and there'll be plenty of opportunity for the Sunrise Assembly. Peter.
One thing that is still very present for me from that first session of the opening was the waves of love I felt for all my beautiful, I don't know how we call ourselves for the Grassroots to Global crew. At some point I thought I couldn't speak. So I think that's part of the secret list, that I don't know, that we are a bunch of crazy people that are kind of family, love each other. I have no idea. It's just beautiful and strong and human. That's what I remember. Eva.
My memory was of various people speaking in the kind of intermingling of personal and cultural stories and personal and cultural histories, and then hove massively into view was Callum massacring Auld Lang Syne and just soldiering through it with such aplomb. It was and the two guys at the end, the two Scottish guys saying, you know, I never thought that what I would say, that the answer to all of this predicament we're in is love. And it's embarrassing for me as a Scotsman to say that, but that's what I'm saying. And wonderful. Wonderful.
Yes, I loved Mark coming in to rescue Callum on that one. That was a really lovely, and I'm loving this. This is a really strange thing to do, isn't it? To be remembering something when you've just done it. This is a very silly thing to do, and that was my feeling from that first circle. Was it was a very silly kind of, that's not quite the right word, but it was awkward and didn't fit, and what we're doing doesn't fit. This doesn't have a place. This is just daft. I mean, it's not. I mean, it appears to be that. It appears to be, but actually it's built on real relationship, like Liz was saying, real relationship with place, and that came through in all of the places we've been, and that was there in that first one in a strange way, because we were all the place, or lots of us were the place that we were relating to. So it was that, just how odd and peculiar humans are, just how everybody, even if they pretend to not be, they're all just like real individual people. And there's something about just really owning that and not fitting into a pattern that we've been told we have to fit into and be colonized by, but actually just being the peculiar people and dropping down through that to that shared heart that is just, it's the same. Just like, Yeah, so I enjoyed the peculiarity in the failure. I really loved the failure. I want to carry on failing really well. Sunrise Assembly, I think we can have thousands of people there and we can all fail. It will be a real failure again, and that will be wonderful. Just really fail well. It's just perfect. So that's my memory.
Akiko and then John.
Sorry, I have to go soon, so that's why I raised my hand. So sorry that I can't stay until the end, but I really, really appreciate this assembly and lots of moments with tears, but I was so happy to meet and see so many people who are really connected with Mother Earth. Thank you so much, and I'm so sorry that I can't stay. And you are so wonderful people. I'm really happy that I know you are here with us. Thank you. I love you all.
Love you too, Akiko. Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
John and then Teresa.
Thank you. Well, I'm coming back in, having been there at the start and somewhere in the middle, and amazing that you're all still there. I've had a night's sleep. I've been in other conferences. I've been in all kinds of other things, and there you are still keeping the flame alive. So yeah, I mean, I really love the start, that sense of embarking on this round of unscripted sharing, and hearing the different experiences of prejudice. For example, people sharing, somebody talking about the COP and sort of stepping up to be hospitable despite reservations and all of the concerns about how it was all instigated. So yeah, and for me as someone with some Scottish ancestry and a strong sense of connection to it, despite being English, it was just lovely to be part of that and to feel that this process began and ended with Scots, and so yeah, wonderful to rejoin you at this stage.
Yeah, what I really loved is that from the very first session, even before we started, we broke the rules and we opened up our waiting room instead of waiting to let everybody in, but we just felt it was silly to do that. And then we also broke the next rule of having 2 different Zoom lines, but we just all stayed on and started to open and close with our new holding groups coming in, and adapting and flowing with life as it happened, and also with what we felt was right. And I'm breaking the rules now again a little bit, because one thing that was really strong for me from the first session was also the different ways that nature sounds were present. So there was the rain on Mark's tent in the Scottish session, but then later there was wind and there was bird song, so much bird song, especially when we connected just now with the East African group. And there were so many other instances where, there was rain. So that was really present for me to feel that place, or Earth made itself heard and felt even through Zoom.
Thank you. Would you like a word before you go, Ian?
That was so funny. That was like I was typing away. Can you read it while I'm typing it? No. Okay. Well, yes. No, that was just like some form of magic that you knew what I was going to do. I just want to toast you all, in the Scottish return of raise a glass to your hearts, and here's the glass of whiskey. Enormous gratitude, There's water. That's good. Water with whiskey. Yeah, bless you all. And yeah, thank you. It's been enormously warming, fulfilling to be here. I'm gonna go. Lots of love.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much, Ian.
Bye-bye, folks.
Maria.
Yeah, I missed all, basically. Running between taking care of COVID patient. My husband got tested positive, and yesterday had to go for a PCR test, and I got tested as well. It came out negative. Yay! But so all that a colleague of mine were sitting in some of the sessions, and he basically shared how intimate he found it, and the experience was very moving, and just for, and actually what I think what he experienced reflected what I had been experienced through weeks and weeks of preparations. And that's what I wanted to share here. Because through the weeks and weeks of preparations, the nature of this, of the process that we've been through, the main character of it, it's basically shaped by that process of preparations. So, wow, I would like to say thank you very much for holding me throughout that process. And I think, yeah, and I think this is an opportunity for all communities to feel like they are heard, to actually have an opportunity to speak for themselves as well as for others, and to be able to listen to each other, to feel like they are part of a global struggle. They are part of a struggle of human beings, of humanity. It's not just a struggle of one community in one place. It is a struggle of all human beings. And I think that feeling will definitely, I mean, I think I have a faith that that kind of feeling will generate so much power to change, to become, to become fully present, to have feet on the ground and in reality. And I think this is what they have shared so far, even though I didn't follow the whole process. Yeah, I didn't. And the last thing I wanted to share is that I never thought that Zoom meetings, seeing people virtually could still is actually powerful, and to a certain degree it doesn't undermine the power of beings. So again, thank you very much. I have really appreciate, and it's such blessings to be in this journey with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Is there anyone else who wants to speak either about the Scottish one or just general reflections, since we seem to have abandoned that, that particular highly structured and really long process? Mark.
One thing that struck me about the Scottish kickoff was that I've known Luke for about 10 years, probably. I think we went to Palestine together a long time ago, and while, you know, I don't know him well, but it was really interesting to hear him speak about his experience growing up and how he was obviously impacted by the kind of sectarian culture of Glasgow, and how the Union Jack and, you know, the actions of others in the community made him feel so alienated in his own city. So the ability to get to know people you already know, but get to know other things about them and get to know them deeper, it's just another. It's another current in this kind of river of consciousness, collective consciousness, that is fascinating, I think. And then to hear Anita, the wonderful woman who's living in Chile,
Anai
speak, you know, she really reminded me of Abby. What's Abby? You all know Abby. Growing stuff, Abby. Do you know who I mean? Oh, damn it. I know her so well. Anyway, it was like a Chilean Abby. And it's funny, I just think there's these amazing people all around the world. And maybe there's some kind of, there's some kind of commonality, but that to be able to hear someone speak in that way when you've never met them before was awesome, you know. So someone I've known for 10 years and I learned something as someone I've never met before, and you learn, you know, and you're given some insight into them. It's a really humbling and rich experience. So thank you again for all your enormous hard work and vision.
Thank you, Mark, and welcome, Frederick. We're just going back round the circle of the sessions that we've had. Are there any more takers for a Scottish memory, or should we move on to Turtle Island? Yeah. So maybe you take another moment or two of silence just to remember it. And then whoever feels to break, Abby Morden, whoever feels to break the silence, then just open your mic and we can take it from there.
I did feel a bit shy because I was holding that session, but it's very strong with me. The that moment of what am I doing offering to organize these with a day and a half left, then followed by wow, people saying yes, and how incredibly beautiful it was to write to these people, and in sometimes a couple of hours, sometimes a day, saying yes, I'm gonna be there. It's just so beautiful. So I don't, regardless of how the session went, is just such a beautiful thing. People saying yes.
I'll go first and then you, Justin. Yes, I just remembered another musical disaster of poor old Claire doing her beautiful bells and ringing, and then there's immense feedback happening, mysterious feedback kind of coming in. We're thinking, was that part of the music? No, that's not part of the music. And then I don't remember too much of what people said, but I remember very strongly Savitri saying that she just wants to be outside all the time. Just like for meetings, for whenever she comes home, she wants to go out again. She just wants to be under the sky. And there was something that really resonated in that. Justin.
Yeah, no, same. I mean, it was amazing, Dieter, that you pulled that together, because we had that New York falling away at the last minute, and yet actually 4 of them came, and they came with a really strong presence, and Savitri brought that. And that was kind of the beginning of Mother Earth for me, though it wasn't spoken of in those terms. And by the time we got to Peru, Mother Earth was there strongly. In Colombia, it was just like really powerfully thumping away, and then Terror and so on, just like that whole. So our question had been, how does the dominant system impact on you and your communities? And it then became you, your communities, and Mother Earth. And it was like so bloody obvious that that was kind of missing from our, and there's just something about really owning what we miss. So what Maria was describing about the preparation, which was all about that decolonial go-rounds, I mean, taking care, but also really having space just to really become aware of how much we are shaped by colonialism ourselves, and that having a real space for it. So we weren't just organizing something, we were being present to each other and to ourselves in a new way. And that happened in the whole process for me of just really Mother Earth just reverberating stronger and stronger. And then, yes, Anahi, Abby, you mean Abby Morden, don't you? Yeah, of course. And her in the last session there, when the Sengwe were asking for help, when they were asking for, in Kenya, when they were asking for help, how can you help us, really? It was like, and it was politics and it was finance, whatever, and Anahi just came so strongly in with love and her community to your community, and you could see them, it was pointing out, you could just see them rising up with kind of like their hearts just so warmed and so strengthened and given such courage from that. And these are people who are shot at and all the rest of it. They're in a really serious situation, but they're wonderful people, but they were so heartened by that. And there's just something about what we're doing is bringing community and community together. But to start with, we have to learn to be community ourselves. So we can't, we're having to learn. And I felt that very strongly, that Scotland and then Turtle Island too, we're still learning. How do we recover community? Whereas when we got to Peru and Colombia, it was like there was lots of community coming up from the ground, and that was happening. Whereas the first two were kind of harder to happen. Like that first session was great in Scotland, but it was harder. And then America was really quite, I don't know how this is going to work. And they both worked really well. But there's that, we're not quite there here yet. And we're needing to do our bit of making community and knowing how to. I feel like we're doing it really well. Yeah, anyway, that's my Turtle Island connection.
Thank you. Any more takers for Turtle Island? Teresa?
A very short one, but for me growing up, North America was mostly what you can see in Hollywood movies, and I think that's how we learn about the rest of the world, many of us. And it's the place where Donald Trump comes from, and a lot of the consumerist culture. But in this session, what touched me really strongly was that there was so much individual, small, warm life present, people talking about being kicked out of their house and living in trailers, and talking about their grandchildren and how they're touched by them and how they're growing up. And so for me, that was a very, very different way to encounter Turtle Island than what most of my experience actually has transmitted.
Thank you. Last call for Turtle Island. And then, too late, we're on to Peru. Little silence to remember Peru for those who were there. I think I was starting to get very tired by then. Then the only thing I can remember is that film with the little boy running away. It was quite scary, and the horrible black shrouded figure who was after him, and he was a really good actor, that little boy. But that was my main thing that I can remember, and the wild Icaros that were sung. It was quite a lot of really wild music. The wild and beautiful Icaros from the two guys. Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah, actually, they're not my words, but Marisol Garcia, because I wrote some of it down because I found it so wonderful. Marisol said, "Watersheds do not have voices, but they are alive. We have the voices to defend them. We are not just defending them for us. Watersheds are alive, but they do not have voices. We have the voices to defend them." And Maluska saying, "Resisting as a collective is beautiful. They give you encouragement when you feel like giving up." And then lastly, Wenceslas doing his amazing ritual with his conch shell and that. How could a shell make that noise? It was extraordinary. He was saying, important to ask, where do you learn about good living and reciprocity? In the Amazon and Andes, it's the communities that keep us alive with respect and love. We have a saying, we are born to die, so why worry? I love that. We are born to die, so why worry? It's such an obvious thing when you hear it. People deepen their knowing because people live in harmony with nature. Because people live in harmony with nature, we are living a good life. This has been shocking for our brothers in the cities who have lost faith and lost their connection with the spirit of the river and everything. We do not see ourselves as alone, but living with our saints, our ancestors, who walk among humans. It's a life of reciprocity. Human beings are not alone.
Tita.
Wenchi as well, and I don't remember his name. Somebody who spoke before him, actually the Icaro player, talking about how they have dealt with COVID and how they have helped their communities and the people, and how instead of isolating, same like in Colombia, instead of isolating, they went and were together and touched each other and held each other and used their knowledge about plant medicine to heal each other.
Yeah, that was the first time I remember hearing about the medicine, which came in so often after that. And that sense that people would rather get ill than be apart. And my experience of so many, particularly elderly people who I know, just having months and months and months of basically complete isolation during that period, being kept not ill, but just starved of any kind of, any love and connection. Yeah. Last chance for Peru before we move to Colombia. I was asleep by then. Well, I did hear a bit, but it was all blur.
I could go. Oh. I take notes. This is my problem. I'm sorry. I'm an anthropologist, right? So I can't help but take notes, especially. But it's okay. I'll just give you just 2 or 3 quotes from that because it just feels. So I mean, it was a wonderfully powerful session, wasn't it? It was just extraordinary. Mikey again had brought that together, like Dieter did with Turtle Island. Mikey brought it together so unbelievably quickly at the end, just out of nothing. Just kind of went, oh yes, of course, we weren't going to have Colombia. we were going to have Peru, not Colombia. And then Colombia happened, and it just like people poured in to be there. So it was a real gathering again from across the country and from outside the country, from people outside. It was just so, and Mikey brought that Mother Earth so strongly. So Mikey's from here, from the UK, lives there, is married in Colombia and lives there. And he was just always with Mother Earth. That was his refrain. And I just, again, it came through. So Adriana Velasco saying, the importance of sharing dreams. Now everything is replaced by TV. Youngsters don't want to get close to elders and don't take their dreams into account. Life is spiritual through the dreams, and so in the plants we connect with them. We have offerings to Mother Earth and the spirits. They are ready to walk with us and connect with us through our dreams that tell us what can possibly happen. The dominating system makes us lose that connection. And then Adriana Chancabon, a maternal greeting from the land of the volcanoes. The first impact is the loss of our identity. Just talking about the impact of colonialism and then how Mother Earth is uniting us. And lastly, Natalie talking about, for us, it is so important to share from our space the care that we have for Mother Earth. Here, the dominant system is making the environmental crisis. It's making the rivers in our communities drying out. Because of banana plantation and cattle ranching, our lands are being devastated. But because we are there, we are able to clean the water. So just talking about that struggle with the kind of the plantations and all the rest of it. But again, just that deep connectedness, just was absolutely. But Diti, you were there till the end. I was only there till the last, for about an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Can you do the audio thing?
It takes some time. It's an automatic feature of either Zoom version, the new Zoom version, or something that just takes a while to kick off. There's nothing I can do. I think it was one of the Carlos talking about the impact of sugar plantations and clay extracting, and how it's just they used to have small holdings and depended a lot on them. And again, for those who need scientific data, there's a lot of research done on the amazing resilience brought by small holding, like small community or family farms, how they sequester lots of carbon, they have etc. etc. And that's the environment that they had in the north towards the coast in Colombia. And it's been converted into a monoculture of sugar so that a lot of us, including myself, can have sweets, and clay for construction and stuff like that. And again, it's another way of disempowering regeneration that goes through people and their wisdom. So that was really heartbreaking. Another instance of how sugar keeps on, destroying the world. I wish I had taken notes.
Thank you. Well, we do have a video, hopefully, once we've run it past people. Last chance for Colombia. One more, yeah?
Beautiful, beautiful medicine we had to start the opening with the tobacco. That took a while, a lot of opening of us, a lot of energy, and how she was showing the tobacco is still closed, it's very dark. And at the end, there was this beautiful opening of the cigar with the fire inside. And she said, it looks like two mountains in there. And her voice was so holding. I really felt her going through my bones. It was absolutely magical.
Oh, thank you. So leaving Colombia and hopping over the sea to Aotearoa. a moment's silence to remember for anyone who was there.
That might be me. I don't remember if it was anybody else there. So I remember Erin arriving. I was with Vasna, and Erin arrived and she started. I thought she was just introducing herself to us too, but she has started. And I was like, oh, it's too late to stop her. So she, and the beauty, that amazing, it's not a ceremony, but it is a ceremony, but it's just so the way of honoring meeting each other by talking about yourself, about your ancestors. And then it's not about my mom and my dad, but she talked about the mountain from where her father line came and the mountain from where her mother's side came, and talking about her environment in a very meaningful way, like this flag is here and it means this, and there is this corn drying on the veranda, and it was just so it's like opening an amazing landscape inside a person.
Yes, I'm on a bit of a theme here, but I love that mate ane, mate meaning to die, and ane, I'm pronouncing it all wrong, I'm sure, but ane meaning the dirt or soil. So one day I will be soil. I just love that. It's just that, just really. And also the earth loves us humans, and we're the youngest. Humans are the youngest compared to the trees. I just love that notion of us being the youngest. We have soft skin. And then there was the whole story about periods and placenta and blood and just kind of reclaiming of all of that, and it not being, being reclaimed. And yeah. And then Beau's comment that the kind of, because he was there talking about the contrast between a survivalist ethos where everything's out to get us, or a relationist ethos. So survivalist is everything's out to get us. Relationist is everything is there to be related to. Totally different way of responding. Totally loved it. Yeah.
I came in right at the end and caught some gems. One was she was talking, she had words again for the kind of the head and the heart and the gut. And she was saying, if you just have a short time to talk to someone, it's just up here, it's superficial. You need time to get down to the gut, to the real connection, and to really getting to know someone. And she was also talking about the way that white people can be very respectful and kind of really wanting to know and learn and share, but that very often what she sees is a kind of performative nod in the direction of acknowledging the Maori perspective and heritage, which they kind of do as a tick box to get on. And it's that sense that so often this culture hasn't trained us to give the time that's needed. And I also love something that she said, which I actually think was in the next session, but she said, walking, she had it was a saying, and it was walking forwards, but looking backwards. So you don't see the future, you just see the past. And as you walk, more comes into view. But I really love that we're walking backwards and we can see the past, but that tells us about the future. Yeah, lovely.
Muri ki anga wa kamua. I walk backwards to the future with my eyes set on the past.
Thank you. Anything else on Aotearoa? So we skim over the water to Australia, and the lovely Dr. Morningstar.
To Arnhem Land. Yeah. He was very education stops our children being on country, and his experience of being bullied at school, and just how education is used to smash connection, and then the real education being on country and learning from everything, all your relations. Yeah, just a lovely, really fantastic energy. And but the one thing that really struck me, that I loved, was he said, I don't want to worry about this big problem, like climate change or whatever it is. I don't want to worry about this big problem. Just want to go home and be happy on country. And that almost summed everything up for me. It's just like when we worry about the problem, we make it worse. We get caught in all sorts of compromises because we're so frightened. But if we can just give up on that and actually just go home and be happy on country, then we can stop the cause of it all. Just that reclaiming of community and connectedness and heart, and that connectedness can stop all of that happening. But if we're just out there without any ground, then we'll just contribute. So I just thought that for me, that was the wisest thing, which was like, I don't want to worry. And it's like, yeah, I found that really wonderful. Amazing guy. And I thought he was being very well shepherded by Bo. They had a PowerPoint projection, because when we met with him before, he just talked and he just talked. And Eva and I were there, and we were very happy for him to just talk forever. We had no problem with that. I think Bo may have had a deadline or something. He didn't need to stop, but we would. And so this time, and then Bo would move the slide on, and so he would then move on. And I just thought, so it's just, I guess, something about how do we manage to be heart connected and spacious, but also kind of fit with other people's realities in the world as it is. And I thought Bo did that really beautifully, actually, very beautifully. Yeah.
Any more on Arnhem Land? I have just a little one, and it's not anything that he said, although he said some great stuff. There's something about him. Both times I've met him, I've just been in floods of tears when he's speaking, and I don't know what it is, but I think there's something about his incredible sincerity and goodness. It really makes me cry. Last chance for Arnhem Land. Anybody? Little nugget? No? Okay. So then flying on to West Papua. Yeah, and that lovely group sitting on a beautiful mat. Teresa.
For me, being part of the organizing team and coordinating with people ahead of time, especially for this session, but also for so many others, what really stood out are the relationships that make this happen. And all the work and the things that you don't see when you come online that people make happen, the meetings that they need to have and how they need to coordinate to make sure that they all catch a boat that is going on an unregular schedule because of COVID, and they make it in time to see the same sunset. And then there needs to be somebody who has set up the tech and has thought of a microphone, and there needs to be somebody who can interpret and translate. And there's so many people and so many connections. We had amazing interpreters for that session, but also for the Peruvian one, and we had somebody to help us to translate to Swahili. And these people are also people that we brought on because of the relationships that are in this group and our wider network that have grown over years. And I think that's really something that that we can feel, that like all of these networks that spread out and connect us with each other that are not visible here on the front side of things, they really made that so many sessions, but also this session happen. So there, yeah. I was really thinking of you, Maria, for that one, and hoping with you that, yeah, everything would work out.
Add something, or not just go ahead.
You first.
I'm still so in love with the way that meeting happened. You know, having people who come to talk about something quite particular. They were talking about land and how to, you know, how to be, how to survive, and they start with music. They start singing and honoring their town and their people. And I remember thinking, I just want this to be the norm. I want that, you know, our decision-making machines, before we do anything, we just sing together to something, and come together. And I also remember Maria's sister coming so gracefully and so gently to translate, and the beauty of the different languages that I could hear. Sometimes I would switch off the translation because it was so beautiful to hear the sounds. It was fantastic. I'm so happy you made this possible, Maria. Thank you so much.
Justin, sorry, I muted you because there was one.
I always forget to mute, and I appreciate you muting me. Please do. It's good. Yeah, Mother Tongue. So there was Mother Earth going around the world, and there was Mother Tongue going around. That was a very, very strong theme of the whole thing, just that. And that came through there very strongly. Dita, I agree, really. And then, yeah, and had already been there, and then was there in Indonesia, and was there in the preparation for the Kenya one. There was lots of negotiation around Mother Tongue and how would you do translation and stuff. So I love what Teresa's saying about all that work that's gone in before. And it's not like work that goes in before to make something happen and then that thing's over. It feels like the work, when it's real work, it's relationship building. So it's not work for an outcome, though there is an outcome. It's work for the real outcome, which is to strengthen the bonds and the relationships. But I remember Sarah afterwards talking about what she got from it was the fulfilling our needs, not our wants. I thought that was really, really strong. And Sarah talking about her need for others needs to be met. Yeah, and Maria, that whole issue of things starting to change or go wrong when government came. And then you were explaining to us later that wasn't really about, they really meant to say colonialism. Really? Was that was right, wasn't it? Yeah. But it wasn't politically correct, or in the kind of Indonesia, well, anyway, whatever. In that context, it wasn't an okay thing to say. So they said government. But so again, just how we have to change what we say sometimes because of power relations. And that's how difficult it is then to speak truth. Yeah.
Marie, did you have a response before Kate?
Yeah, it's the preparations. To be honest, a lot of what they've said in the end in that circle, a lot of it were not in the preparations. That in my sister, sometimes when she disappeared, actually she was jumping on the back saying, it wasn't on the scenario. Just they you know, they didn't care about what, you know, about anything. And that was the beauty of this. And that's what I said earlier on. That's the beauty of this space. It gives us, when freedom is there, nobody can take it back. So even if my sister was jumping up and down in the back, they just didn't care. They carried on and they just talked, you know. In the beginning, in the preparation, we thought, you know, they thought they were going to do it in their own language. but then they sort of like mixed it up when in the real situation, and everybody on the back were like, what? So yeah, so the one thing that I learned, this process actually, when we talk about relationship, this process, trust, it basically, from the preparation, the main values that this process set as the foundations of this is trust. That is very, very good, helping them to do so. But yeah, in terms of colonizations and how they word it, because that kind of the word penjajah, colonizer in Indonesian, it's painful to just to name it, because it's so real. It's not history, it's here and now. So I think that's just my comment. Thank you for the opportunity, Eva.
Kate.
I love what you've shared about what went into putting this particular session together. It reminds me of those things that you get at the end of wildlife things, when you've seen absolutely amazing shots of leopard kills or something, and then you have 10 minutes at the end of somebody explaining how they were in the bush for 24 months just to capture that particular shot. And I really get that sense from the way you're talking, Maria, about your sister leaping into shot and leaping out of shot. And it gave a wonderful sense of really almost like a window into somebody's sitting room, just like you've cut a wall away and you're sitting there watching directly the conversation as it happens. So that was a huge privilege. But I have to say, I came away from the session feeling quite pained because of the way people were talking about what had been lost. You know, diet had changed, and the kinds of small organizations set up in order to raise a little bit of money to basic needs like to pay for schooling and to pay for transport. And it upset me, because that's what I've spent most of my life in Africa, and that's exactly what I've seen. And I suppose I felt other parts of the world must have done it better. But on the basis of what we heard today, that's clearly not the case. But then I want to go further than that and say there's a wonderful resilience in it, that people are still singing. And they're still, you know, I'm sure they would have been dancing if they could have. So what can we do? What do we need to do to go forward from that resilience and from the way it's backed into a corner stuff? If your livelihood has been taken away and all you're now doing is just raising enough money for transport and schooling, I want, you know, I'm feeling a bit like Dieter felt about the East Africa one. It's just unacceptable. Yeah, that's my word. And I think, yeah, I have no clue beyond that, but except that there is that resilience that I think it's almost, you know, somehow we have to see it as a, you know, a trampoline or something. You bounce down into that resilience and keep what's there and use that as the springboard. Because if we don't, we'll just be singing folk songs into the carbon emissions. And we've got to do better than that. So yeah, sorry if I'm not being positive, because it was a wonderful positive thing, but it hurt me as well.
Thank you, Kate. And I just want to welcome Uri. If you were at any of the sessions, yes, rehashing, enabling learning. Thank you for reframing, the positive reframe. Yeah, we're retracing our steps, and we've just just been in West Papua, inviting any memories that anybody has of any of the sessions. I don't know if you were with us along the way or not, but yeah, you feel free to chip in.
Yeah, I joined to some moments. I couldn't stay for very long, but I was, I think, in yesterday in some transition moment, and then a little bit with the Kenya part. And I was like in parallel, I was with Inga Meta and with some people dreaming about a Sicilian cassata project. So this is a Sicilian cassata, is an ice cream with many flavors. And we were speaking about multisensorial performance of wisdom, of rural wisdom, to teach the urban developed world about resilience. So that's what I got from there. Yeah, and about wisdom of doing and drawing, and Chetna, who's from India, shared about how in some village they make these dots, diagrams like mandalas with food, and then the ants, they move through the diagram. There's folk wisdom, and yes, what I feel about working with people in the edges in Papua or Kenya, as people from the West, like myself, we have a pattern to try to come there as some kind of teachers or or teaching them, which is absurd because they are not creating the missions and they are not the one that are, there is no sense of teaching them about climate. There is a sense about learning about what is a regenerative culture. There is a sense of supporting, but not supporting. I also not always comfortable with supporting with. I think in many current parts of the world, we have created more damage with our charity than with our industries. The charities in Africa have created more damage than the mining industries in Africa, because they exported and imported into Africa forcefully models of medicine and models of education that are not local, that are not supporting the community, that are disintegrating in the name of science, in the name of progress and development. They are importing and exporting things that are disintegrating the social fabric, which is regenerative, because it is regenerative, it lives within the limits. And to feel good about the fact that you're polluting and destroying half of the planet or the whole planet. So you give back by exporting your models of education without a consideration. So that's what I feel about that. And we are this ice cream world with all the different colors and finding the joy and the wisdom of in the food, and it's always there, no matter where you are. There is wisdom.
Thank you, Uri. I'm aware that that I don't want to stop anybody speaking, but we're running quite late and it's been a long 24 hours. Can we just touch in lightly on the remaining places? So that was West Papua, then there was Indonesia. Anyone want to share a nugget or two from Indonesia?
Such beautiful ritual. The precision of making amazingly perfect rice balls with something else that I think had coffee and stripes, and they had to be placed really properly. And I think, if I understand correctly, it was the right placement, as in with intention. It wasn't so much about the millimeter, but that there needed to be an intention. And last thing I'll say, I'm gobsmacked by the message that they got, which is don't cut the trees, stop harming nature, don't cut the trees. So beautiful.
I remember being really shocked when the guy who was telling us about it was saying, so this dance that he's doing is it's about the intention for peace and, you know, loving harmony. And then he went and waving his sword around, looking so fierce. It was great. I love that.
That's how you get
Anything
around
else?
the
Anything else from Indonesia?
I'll make it short. Something that I was really touched by is how much also in the Latin American and then again in the African sessions, Christianity was present alongside indigenous ritual or belief systems. And people would make references, and there was a prayer that ended with Amen, for example, before people started to eat. So yeah, I felt somehow uncomfortably touched by the recognition of that on one side, because it is a trace of colonization and indoctrination and so on. But then on the other hand, I also really felt that people are owning that and they're making it their own and changing it from the inside. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about it, but that's something that that struck out to me.
Thank you. Any other nuggets? Do you have a nugget, Just?
Yeah, I was chatting with Serge during that, and I hadn't realised that was an area that is very strongly Christian, but that community has really reclaimed much that is not Christian. So really holding on in a way that it sounds quite hard, but that they've done really well, and that ritual seemed really to embody that. Yeah, I think I said this in the post-reflection thing, but I just thought the bit about we can work together to stop the destruction of the forest. We can do that together. We can't do it alone if we want to avoid the extinction of human and other beings on Earth. Just that togetherness, that we have to do it together. And then this last bit, which was that bit about when we suffer disaster, we cannot blame others because it happens. If we fail to make our commitments. So just this taking responsibility bit, I feel like I just want to say it because that's just such a. So I work in an Indigenous People's Rights organization, but actually Indigenous peoples tend to think about responsibility. Taking responsibility is not about they have to demand their rights. They have to. That's really important. But actually, it's what matters is that taking responsibility and hearing that from people who are suffering so much, and yet that's their focus is on what do they need to do to make sure things are well. I thought it was really powerful.
Mark.
Thanks. Yeah. Yes. I found that quite strange. The taking of the blame upon themselves. Trying to put my thoughts into words here. When they were carrying out the ceremony, and yet so much of the bad that has happened to them is so not their fault, and yet they're taking that onto themselves, and I thought it must be so difficult to have faith in these ceremonies when bad things keep happening one after another, one colonization after another colonization, and then the sea starts rising, and that's the and yet to still have the faith and the trust in these old ceremonies. Yeah, I found it inspiring, and at the same time a little bit, I don't know what the word is. It maybe guilt-inducing, but Yeah, it seemed wrong that they were taking the responsibility for so much that wasn't their fault.
Thank you, Mark. Last call for Indonesia before we jump over to East Africa, Kenya and East Africa.
It's a very deep discussion, a very deep discussion after the ritual.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we hopped over to East Africa. Oh, bye-bye, John. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, folks. Sleep well.
We will.
We will.
Yeah, because the Ogiek didn't join us, so there was a group of us who spoke and shared in that space as we were waiting for them. I don't know if anyone has memories of that they would like to share, Dita. No. No.
Well, yes, the reckoning of the hag.
Yeah. Forgot about the hag.
Can you explain?
Hmm?
Can you explain?
Yes, so the feminine, which is not only has been forgotten or distorted in its femininity and in its power of receiving and containing, but also in its medicine. So those themes of the feminine as holding and the feminine as healing that were very present all around the Sunset Assembly, and then we talking about hags and what they are and how they're connected to hedges and preserving nature and curing people from all sorts of illnesses. I think it was quite fitting.
And maybe it's a good opportunity to just honor all of the beautiful sharing circles that we had in between the sessions, because this session kind of was just a big sharing circle. And I feel like every one of them had a very different quality. Every time I popped in, there was, sometimes they were really calm and really gentle, and sometimes there was a lot of fierceness, and there were moments of laughter and also a lot of really hard moments of grief and anger and guilt and all of it. And yeah, I felt they really held us together.
It was lovely, and I was so glad that we decided to abandon our other call and that we kept everything on this one call. It was much more as we had first thought of it, as this one meeting that would go all the way around. And it kind of flowed from active meeting to reflective sharing circle. Yeah, really beautiful.
Just a word on the Ogiek, the Mount Elgin one that didn't happen. Well, there were quite a few that might not have happened if the boat hadn't arrived or if the rainstorms had come elsewhere, and that was the one that didn't happen. But there's relationships there that meant that it would have happened, and those relationships are there with it not happening. And so it's like, it's not, I don't know but it is just what we've been talking about earlier, just about this is all embedded in relationships. So it's not there's not a product to sell. There's not something that, oh, that didn't happen, so it's like, that's okay. They couldn't make connection. It's fine. They got through for moments, and then they didn't get through, and then the Sengwer came in. So the East Africa, Tanzania, Kenya one came in kind of before, and we didn't quite know who was arriving, because there was some at the Ogiek from Mount Elgin were on that they just made enough connection, and the Sengwer were making connection, and I was going, oh no, we're going to have both at the same time, which would have been fine as well. But so just a bit of chaos, and then we had the Sengwer there, a little circle of them sitting there waiting to greet us and really keen, and that was just delightful. So I guess I've moved us into that section. Don't know if anybody has anything they want to share from.
Thank you. Yeah, so East Africa, the Awa, the Sengwer.
recognition of being from the south with the that they were doing with Anaï, and how beautiful, like we said before, she brought her heart when they were asking for help.
Yeah. And for me also, there was a kind of sense of that impotence that I think many of us felt when just faced with this awful situation that they were in, and that their plea for help, and are like, well, what can we do? And the sense, and for me thinking, well, this is what I'm trying to do, but it doesn't feel like it's anything like enough or fast enough or big enough. And then Milka saying, you know, a really big assembly with people from all around the world, and I felt like, yeah, no, this is right. This is the right thing to be doing. We're not there yet, but it's you know, it's one of the things that is on the way to helping to shift things, and also a sense of being one little stream in many that are making a big river of change. And yeah, that we're doing this together.
Just, I guess, the combination of the kind of the struggle and the suffering, and also their kind of dignity and positivity in their response to Nahi, and just that their bodily enthusiasm that you pointed out, Eva, just that kind of like that they were all just like, whoa, up for the love. And they're really up for the love and the courage, and we're alive now and we're going to die, so why not be alive now? And those are people who've really been through it. And I guess that just that feeling of community is where we're aiming for, to building community and connecting, and that is actually really a powerful support to each other, and that means we can be more than the powers we're up against if we link in that way. So not just a big assembly, but the route to it is relationship between community, not just between individuals. It feels like we're really on a good path with that.
Mark.
What's coming through to me strongly from listening to these conversations is listening to how trees speak to each other, and how trees support each other at different times of the, you know, and you know, like if the nutrients aren't there in one place, then they get shifted to those, and there's this there's this fungal and rhinoceros connection, and I'm seeing that with this. It's not a case of scaling it up, because one of the vital things about it is it's small enough to be personal and to be networked. But imagine this kind of this kind of fungus of nutrients spreading about, going to those people who are most in need, and flowing to us as well, because those of us sitting in this luxury are feeling pain, and to be able to share with this connection that exists with others feeds us, and you know, it feels to be so exciting that there is just so much potential in conversation, in deep connectedness, and this feels to me like a seed, you know. That's what I love. I love that, those kind of seed. You know, you can never think that an oak tree would grow from an acorn. You'd never think that a sunflower would grow from you know. And this, what it feels like. It feels like a seed that's been planted, and the what could be growing out of it is beyond probably all our imaginations.
Thank you, Mark. I'm aware that you've not had a word yet, Fred. Is there anything you'd like to say?
Well, it's just being here as an observer, and I mean, seeing how would I say, how gentle you were, and how respectful of what you have seen, and how indeed, I mean, the impact has been very, very, very strong on all of you, and the way you talk, the way you deal with the silences, the way you bring different communities together. And then when you just mentioned a moment ago that yes, the next step would be to bring them all together in an assembly. That is actually, I mean, what with our group we are trying to do. But perhaps we have to, it would be good to go a step backwards the way you are doing it, because I think that's the process is very, very, very important. So I'm terribly impressed, in fact, by what you have seen, and which I haven't seen, because I mean I came in now, but I didn't follow it. But it reminds me of the time I spent in India with the communities, and indeed how this connection, in fact, is something which is so strong, and it has to do with different conceptions of time, different ways of being together, and the fact that this is kind of so moving. It's because it's exactly so simple. It has to do with just being there, sharing, and that is what comes very much over in what you're doing here. So I think there's a lot to be learned, and not only from what they are teaching us, but also an awful lot of being learned just by being in the process and being there completely as a person the way you are here. So that is quite beautiful and moving. Yes, so I think it's the right way to move forwards actually. So thanks.
Thank you, Fred. So I think we want to move to closing. Is there any last words that anybody would like to say?
This sharing, carry on. Don't stop.
Don't stop. Don't stop. Oh, bless you.
Taking one sentence from this closing session: singing folk songs into the carbon emissions. Singing folk songs into the carbon emissions.
Folk songs.
Folk songs. Folk songs.
Folk songs.
Folk songs.
Folk songs.
No, folk songs.
I have a last word. In fact, two last words. One is there will be a video. We are planning to check it with everybody to see if they want us to cut anything out, and then we can put it on our website so people can come and visit any part of the proceedings. And we are also planning a sunrise assembly in March at the equinox, and I think we would like it to be mycelially spread from what we've done, to include maybe parallel circlings of the globe, or maybe it's going to be something different, but who the heck knows. Anyway, join us.
Maybe it's a week long.
Yeah. And also I just wanted to say backwards and forwards, to say thank you so much to every person who joined, the people who reached out, the people who did tech and all the stuff in the background, Dita and Teresa in particular, the people who participated and came in from different communities, and the people who witnessed, whether they spoke and shared or whether they just purely witnessed. I just feel incredibly grateful to every single person who's been part of this, and really wanted to say that. Sorry, Justin, you.
No, and just the example of that is Fred and what he's just done now. So he's just come in for this bit, and he's really caught crucial things for us. So that's just, you're a great example, Fred, of every bit matters. It's mycelial in the way that Mark was describing. It's just like every thread really matters. That's what makes it strong. There isn't an important thread and then a not important. Each one is the whole, and that just really want to appreciate that. And with the filming, I think it'll be a 2-minute clip from those 24 hours that will be what will be really useful, or another 1.5 minutes. That, because actually next time, really letting people know about this, whereas this time was all about the quality, which was great. And next time we can actually allow this to blossom as well, which I really feel, it's a strong enough base to really let us be mycelian from. So yeah, thank you, Dita and Teresa in particular, and Maria, woof, and all those who aren't here who did all that work. Yeah, wow, wonderful.
Can I say something on behalf of those of us that did absolutely nothing?
That's not true. You supported at
No,
least one
seriously,
people.
you
a
guys
lot.
have all been congratulating each other, which is totally justified. But as somebody who's been on the receiving end of it all, I just want to say my heart goes out to you, because it has been an eye-opener, full of personal highs and lows, and foreshadowing everything, or so much of what we need to do, including all of the bits that throw up my internal critic. It's worked at so many different levels, and that's a reflection of vision, but also the capacity to translate vision into these last 24 hours. And I want to say that because all of you deserve it so very, very much.
If I may add, I want to also really thank Eva, Justin, Teresa, Mark, Winston, and the whole Rewilding who kind of inspired this. And that session that I missed, that for a good reason, I was chatting with Mark in the main Zoom room while the time session was happening in a breakout room. And I think I would also like to thank Brian, who brought that theme of the time so beautifully, that kind of percolated and made this. I can feel his energy here as well, and all the other people who participated there.
Oh wow, we could go on forever, couldn't we? We could just spread all those threads. Ryan Esmeralda and Kathy and all that. Yes, we're all our ancestors. Yeah, all our ancestors. Yeah. I'm going to bed.
Yeah, it feels hard to close this Zoom after all this bubbling away it's been doing.
Shall we all unmute and say au revoir?
Or make a sound.
Bye bye.
Bye. See you soon.
Be well.
Yeah, see you soon.
Hello, goodbye, Yuri. Lovely to meet you.
Have some ice cream.
I want ice cream.
Saving the world one ice cream at a time.
Mushroom flavored ice
Kids
cream.
think you're promising ice cream.
Next time.
I'm going to make a suggestion that on the count of 3, get your red button ready. Get your red button ready. 1, 2, 3, press.